What's up, guys? It's Eventon here. Like I mentioned in my last video about kind of like the orca fits, I did want to make something for you guys, a little bit about the history of Eve, at least for me, kind of my introduction to it, everything that's kind of led up to this point. So one of my alts, I've been meaning to send it over to Heck. It has, no skills, no nothing on it. I mainly wanted to use it for market purposes, just to get just to get a body in Heck and in that market in case I need to buy or sell something. Whatever it may be. So it's 19 jumps, and I'm using a Corvette, as you can see here. So it's going to be quite a trip. So I figured I would make this video for you guys, talking about, I don't really have like a format or anything like that, or I didn't kind of come up with a script. I just have some really rough outlines and some like major points that's happened in my Eve career that's kind of led me up to this point, including making these videos. So we'll go ahead and dive into it, and I'm going to undock here in just a second. Hey guys, I wanted to throw this edit in here because this entire, like the last 40 minutes of this thing, the visuals are very, very laggy. So the very end of it, there are a couple things I did try to show you guys, so I'm going to leave that up so you can see how laggy it was. But for the majority of this, I'm just going to be putting up random like EVE Online, like desktop backgrounds that change occasionally, so you guys have something to look at. But this is going to be more of like a podcasty type thing that you run in the background or anything, so there's not going to be much to look at. But long story short, I appreciate you guys listening to the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hope you guys enjoy the story. All right, and going forward from here, I'm going to try my best to do this entire video in one take. So I guess I wanted to start it off with my intro to EVE Online. I heard a lot about it. I was playing World of Warcraft for a long time. I heard about EVE Online, and occasionally I would see some articles about, oh, there's this huge battle that happened. Tens of thousands of dollars were lost in this huge battle between all these titans and these huge ships, and I'm like, oh, that seems pretty cool. But then when I would like watch the footage, it was just like a lot of big dots and stuff like that. I'm kind of like, what the heck's going on? But like, there's some sort of appeal happening here. It wasn't until about 2014 or 15 I was out of college. I was talking with a friend, and I was actually at his house, and he talked to me about EVE Online, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so he was playing it. He was kind of flying around in a ship. I'm like, oh, this is kind of sick. It looks like an exploration, like MMO, spaceship type of game, things like that. I'm like, oh, this is kind of sick. And so he was also showing me some not so good stuff about it. Like he was doing apparently a lot of like real market trading. So he was like buying ISK and like Plex and stuff like off all these sites directly instead of going straight through CCP. So I figured that was just a big no-no, especially playing RuneScape and other MMOs like that. I know all that kind of like real-world market trading is a big no-no for the most part. So I kind of saw like the worst side of it for that bit. And I remember actually making an account, and I played with them for, I don't know, maybe a week or so, and then he stopped playing, or he had other obligations going on, and so I stopped as well. And it wasn't until, I would say, about 2017. So this isn't my main account. Unfortunately, like I said, this is an alt on my main account, so you can't see, but my account started probably in like June of 2017. I was just, I think I was in between jobs at the time, probably like most people that eventually started playing EVE, where they have an incredible amount of time on their hands. So they're just like, what can I do to kind of waste a lot of time, but also be really immersed and kind of, get into something like EVE. And at that point, I was on Steam, and I saw EVE Online, and they had this deal going on. So I was like, oh yeah, I remember EVE Online. I remember it seemed pretty fun. So I remember getting into it, going through the tutorial, and I think I remember doing like the mining missions and like the mining tutorial and that kind of stuff. So I really was interested in like the mining aspect of it. And I actually joined a miner corp soon after. These guys were really nice to me. They gave me fleet boosts and stuff like that, but I was still an alpha account at the time. And they were telling me like, yeah, like if you really want to, I'll just go ahead and minimize this. All I need is this on the left side. Like, yeah, like if you really want to get mining, get some like good mining numbers up, we're going to need you to like get into a barge like as soon as possible, but you're going to need Omega. And so I was pretty hesitant about it for a while, but I was like, you know what? I really enjoy mining. Like I want to make sure I don't like let these guys down. I'll go ahead and pay for Omega, which I did, and I don't regret it. This was a relatively small mining corp. It was a high-sec mining corp. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And I did do a few fleets and things like that, but then eventually they started getting like anytime you were online, like you had to be in the Discord and like being active on Eve, and anytime there was more than a handful of people online, our corp CEO would call like an emergency, not like an emergency, but he would call like a last second like mining operation if there was any more than like 4 or 5 people online, and so we all had to like jump in, and it was just that type of commitment I just wasn't ready for. And I think because it was a small corporation, he obviously wanted to kind of either make a name for himself or start getting some ISK flowing so he can afford to get some more people to join the corp, things like that. But I just wasn't ready for that level of commitment. And I was doing some other small stuff. I think I was doing like level 1 and 2 missions at the time. And so I didn't mind it too much, but then I just stopped just because just the sheer amount of time commitment with the game was just too much. So I eventually just stopped playing, and I probably took about a 2.5, 3 year break. At that point, I was just doing other stuff, focusing on work, things like that. And I really didn't start picking things up again until COVID happened. So about 6, 7, probably like 8 or 9 months ago. At that point, I was on Steam. I remember I still had my EVE Online account, and it said it was like free to play. And I think EVE was free to play when I started back in 2017 as well. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I definitely knew it was free to play, obviously, recently. So I just hopped back in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I still have a character. I completely forgot about this. And it actually had a decent amount of skills like associated with it. I had like good shield and drone skills because I was a miner, and I was also Caldari as well. So I was like, okay, cool, I can get back into this. I was playing for free for a bit. Then I eventually went Omega for the most part. And then I found out one of my work friends also really liked EVE Online too. And so he was really, really into missions. And so we started doing missions. And apparently I found out pretty quickly that all he was interested in was running like level 4 missions just over and over and over. I wasn't in the best ship. I think the best ship I had was, I'm trying to remember which cruiser it was. But it just like wasn't that good. I think it was, gosh, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I've flown it so little, as you can tell, I don't really know it too much. Yeah, I was using like a Caracal at the time, which is not able to do level 4 missions by itself. But he was like in a Vindicator or something like that. So he was just carrying everything. And then I think eventually I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm not doing damage, but I'll just salvage everything. So I was just following around, and then that part got kind of boring. So and then he also stopped playing too as well. And so that seems to be the issue with a lot of MMOs that you guys have probably played yourself, where you initially get interested because you're friends, and then they stop playing. And then you start getting bored and you usually quit shortly after. But I noticed that wasn't really happening with me. I just was really enjoying playing on my own, discovering things on my own for the most part. And so it was just a game that like really captivated me. And I was pretty much obsessed with it. I was watching a ton of YouTube videos on the different types of content and fittings and how to make ISK and different ships and how you should do certain missions and factions and standings. And I just wanted to learn everything about EVE, and it just really got my attention. And then after that was done, I was like, well, I really want to learn about exploration and some of these other things. So I actually went back after my account being like months and months old, went back and did a lot of the career agent missions because I noticed I didn't even do them. So I got a few free ships. But again, like my character was still relatively new for the most part. And I remember actually getting, doing the exploration, like the exploration career agents, and getting in my Heron and scanning down some sites. And I found a wormhole, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is probably like really unique. I bet not a lot of people hear about wormholes. And I remember typing in like, I think I was still in like the rookie chat at the time. Like that's how new like my account was. And I remember telling people like, hey, I found a wormhole. And half the people were like, dude, just go through it. And I did. And I scanned down another site. It turned out to be like a C5 site. And I went to a site I scanned down and got immediately obliterated by drifters. And I was like, yeah, I went through this wormhole and I got killed. And I put that in like the rookie chat, and everyone's like, oh man, that sucks. But then I had one random guy. Wow, that is a lot of wrecks here. Wow, someone got ganked right here. I feel like I should have a more frigate, but that was a frigate wreck. Well, this is Udama, so obviously. God, that was crazy. There was obviously a really recent gank, if that happened. Anyway, yeah, so this guy randomly donated me like 10 million ISK. And he was like, yeah, you're pretty badass, dude, for going through that wormhole and losing your hair. And like, that should be able to, pay for a few extra ones. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So like, this was like the first time I saw someone, got to see like the good side of like the Eve community and things like that. And I mean, there's more to it than just like getting donations from people. But there's a lot of really awesome people on Eve, but there's also not a lot of awesome people, which makes the community great, At that point, shortly after, I was still really interested in mining, so I just started skilling up more and more in barges. I liked the mining aspect of that part, and at this point, this is when I noticed that the Triglavian invasions were happening. I was surprised how I was able to manage to just avoid the Triglavians for like the longest time, but it wasn't until it was like one or two. It was probably like there was like 1 month where I lost like 3 retrievers to the Triglavians, and I still just couldn't understand why. I was just dying so quickly, and I was just like, gosh, if only there was like a mining ship that was like tanky, had a big capacitor, so I could like warp off. Like, gosh, I just don't understand. And so I went to like the mining chat help, and they recommended me the Procure. Then ever since then, all my problems have been solved for the most part. Shortly after getting bored of mining, I started doing level 3 missions on my own, and I was mainly using the Gila because my friend at the time that we were running missions together, he was really into like the pirate faction ship. So he had like the Vindicator. He also had, what was the other one too? Like the Rattlesnake. So he loved like the pirate ship. So he was like, dude, you got to get a Rattlesnake. It's the best mission running ship. So I was like, all right. So I was skilling towards it, but I wasn't close enough for it. So eventually I had the Gila, and I was running level 3 missions pretty consistently. And I loved the ship because I was always really into like using drones, and I've always been the kind of person that likes using summoning minions and like things to kind of fight on my behalf, and kind of like using I guess the NPCs to do my damage and all that stuff. So World of Warcraft, I was like doing a warlock and kind of using demons and stuff. So I guess the equivalent of this in Eve is using drones, and so I loved using the Gila for the most part. And so I was doing level 3 missions. Tried doing level 4s, and it just wasn't working out. I mean, I can do it now because I have better skills for the Gila, but eventually I was like, gosh, I need to get a bigger ship. So eventually I skilled up to the Dominics, and I saw this really, really cool like sentry sniper fit for the Dominics. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So it definitely made the missions take a long time, but I could complete them. I was using the micro jump drive, and I was just sniping them with my sentry drones. And at this point I was like, gosh, I'm not getting a lot of ISK. So I skilled up for more LP and more ISK for the missions. And I was like, then I found out that if you went into lower security space, you would get more ISK and LP. And at this point, I don't think I've ever been in lowsec. I knew you could get attacked, but I wasn't sure how dangerous it was really. So I found like a local mission running hub, and so at this point I think I was doing Caldari Navy at this point. And so I got my Dominics, went into lowsec. I'm trying to remember which system it was off the top of my head. I don't. And I ran missions for like 8 hours straight and never got ganked. I didn't see any other ships. Nothing happened. And I was like, oh, like lowsec isn't as bad as it seems to be. Sure enough, the very next day I log in. The very first mission I did, it was one of the missions where it just dropped a bunch of like faction tags. So I knew I was like losing reputation, but I just like needed the ISK with like the other empires and stuff. So I remember dropping an MTU, and it was grabbing all these tags and all this loot, and I was about to go in and loot it or grab my MTU. Then I saw a Garmer warp into my part of space, whatever you want to call it, and I was like, oh shit. So I immediately warped off in my Dominics. And I was like, gosh, like my MTU is worth like 7 or 8 million, and also probably has like 50 million worth of like dog tags in there. And I'm like, gosh, I could probably just like not deal with the Garmer, because I was just told like if you see a ship in lowsec, you just warp away. I had no understanding of what EWAR was, warp scramming, webbing. Like I had no idea what that stuff did. I never looked into it, never skilled towards it, nothing. So stupid me, instead of docking and just kind of waiting for them to leave and just calling it quits and just accepting my losses, I actually went back probably about 2 minutes later to scoop my MTU. And when I went back, the Garmer was there, of course, waiting for me. And there was 2 Ravens also there waiting for me as well. I don't know if it was 2 Ravens or Vindicators. I can't remember off the top of my head, but but of course the Garmer just locked me down. I couldn't move, couldn't warp, couldn't do anything, and then the two Ravens or the two battleships were just blowing me to high hell. So at that point, I was pretty upset, and I was upset at the scenario, but I knew I did it to myself. So I wasn't upset at the game. I was like, you know what? I knew the risk going back. I had no idea what was happening, so you know, it is what it is. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I'm not going to lowsec for at least a long while after that. And then I started looking to doing something a bit more safe. I don't know why I thought about doing hauling, but I thought that aspect was really intriguing. Probably because I stumbled upon Marquis Dragon, and he had a few videos about hauling fits, and he was like multi-boxing a bunch of freighters and stuff like that. I wasn't interested so much in the freighters, but I was just like, oh, I could haul for ISK. All I got to do is pick up something in one area and drop it somewhere else. Like, it just seems like it's a sheer convenience thing. It doesn't seem like it's too dangerous. And oh boy, I was wrong. I didn't realize the amount of scams and gank contracts. I actually do have a video I made recently about how to spot scam and gank contracts. And same thing with just like high collateral and things like that. And I was just really surprised by the amount of stuff that was involved when it came to hauling. So I also did a ton of research too about what's the best hauler, which race, things like that, and eventually settled on the Amar race for best haulers, just because they seem to be the most flexible. I love the flexibility of having like a lot of low slots and being able to have enough cargo space to, you know, fill up the, you know, fulfill the order or fulfill the contract, and then like filling it up with other things. Plus, I just like love the impel. Like the look, I mean, it looks terrible, but it's just super good because it has like a lot of low slots, and I've actually used it quite a bit to go through Niarja back in the day when it was still there with the Trig invasion and stuff like that. I would just fill the lows with a ton of warp stabilizers. I mean, if there was a dictator there, I mean, I would have screwed anyway. But it did help me shake off a few people that were trying to scram me, but my warp stab strength was just too high. So sorry if I'm just like blabbering a lot, but I'm just going off on this. So this is going to be a longer video, as you can tell, for the most part. And so at this point, that's when I found out, and a lot of people were telling me, because if I wanted to go into like lower security space and not get ganked and things like that, you would need to have an alt. And I was entertaining the idea of having an alt, and I was telling myself like, gosh, I don't want to be that guy, because I've heard stories of people with like 47 alts on EVE Online. I'm like, gosh, I don't want to be that guy. I just want to have my main character, and that's it. And then I eventually told myself, all right, well, there seems to be a lot of benefits with having an alt. Obviously, for scouting purposes, I was also really curious about exploration as well. I've always wanted to try it out because I saw some videos about it, and it seemed cool that you can go into like wormhole space in this area where you can't see anybody in local chat, nothing's happening, but you can still make a ton of ISK with like minimal skills. And I was like, all right, I want to try this out. So I made an alt, and I wanted to be like a cloaky alt for the most part. So it just seemed natural that I would start doing exploration. I was using my Heron a lot, and I think the first time I ever died in my Heron, my first death ever on my alt was actually in a wormhole. A guy from Wingspan actually killed me, and he sent me, of course, this like troll email saying like, hey, your torpedo delivery was completed, or whatever it was, you know, the kind of like that mail that they send you when they gank you. And but he did refund me because he found out that like my alt was like a newer character, and this is probably the first time I ever did exploration. So he actually did refund me the cost of my ship. And I tried to talk to him, but he just kept on staying in character and like trolling me. So I was like, all right, whatever, never mind. But I give him props for like staying in character and kind of like refinding me and all that stuff. So that was kind of my first encounter with Wingspan, and luckily it hasn't happened again yet for the most part. And so I was skilling towards the Sisters of Eve ships, which was taking quite a while to skill towards Sisters of Eve, mainly because I was tired of being hunted, and I wanted to be the hunter in the wormhole systems. But also, it seemed like the Astera was a good like scouting ship as well, if I was going to start using it to scout for like my hauler and things like that. So so after exploration and all that, I also taught it a little bit of mining too. Actually, right now it's probably my best miner is my alt. It knows exhumers and all that stuff. My main is uses more the orca. But around this time, this is when basically like the Fire Nation attacked, or I should say the Triglavian invasions started. And so invasions started happening, systems were getting taken over, chaos was reigning, all kinds of stuff was happening. Edencom forces. I'm pretty sure this character hasn't done anything, and he should be pro Edencom, hopefully. So we'll see if we jump through here. Hopefully nothing should be red, because all my other characters are pro Triglavian. Okay, yeah, these don't seem to be a threat. Yeah, because all my other characters are pro Triglavian, but I think this guy hasn't done any content, so he's pro Edencom by default. And so when the Triglavians started invading, I actually joined the Edencom side at first because I wanted to fight the Triglavians, and I remember there was a ton of people joining these fleets and killing the Trigs, but the content got boring like really easily. Like even though it was something different and it was kind of like more fleet based, I was really interested. Hold on. I liked the fleet-based content and all that stuff, but I got bored because it was just so repetitive, and the amount of standings increase you would get with Edencom was so minimal. I was just like, all right, I'm done with this. I did it for about 3 days, and then I called it quits. Doing like that type of content, and it didn't seem like nothing was happening until the very first like final luminality system happened. I'm like, oh, okay, like stuff is happening. So I got bored of that content. I went back to mission running, and then I think one of the systems got taken over that was on the path to my typical like mission running system. So I actually lost my mission running Gila, and I was really upset, like losing that ship. I lost it on the gate. I noticed there was like a whole bunch of other wrecks around and stuff like that, and it wasn't like a huge part of my capital, but I was pretty distraught to like lose my ship. I felt like I was cheated out of it, and all that stuff. And so at that point, I was like, God, there has to be a better way to like make more ISK. So I started looking up a bunch of videos on like how to make ISK and do this. And so then I stumbled upon like station to station trading, which I was already kind of doing with hauling, and I was just mostly doing contracts, but I didn't realize like the idea of like buying a bunch of stuff in one station and transporting it to another station to like make a huge profit. I was doing it minimally, and I just didn't think I have the right tools or like websites to like leverage it as much as I could. But then I started doing that, especially since I had my skills were good enough for like a deep space transport like the Impel. And so I actually made a lot of ISK from it. Like I was doing that really hardcore for about probably about a month and a half, maybe a bit longer. And which station is it, to be honest? I think it's honestly, I honestly don't know off the top of my head which is the like main trade hub. You know what the easier way to do is? Let's go ahead and do the search. Do like basic. I was searching for something else. Not the I choose you. Yeah, I figured it was the boundless creation, but I wanted to make sure. So whichever station had the most stuff in it, or that was like the most popular, was like the main trade hub. Almost done with the story. Sorry if I'm kind of blabbering a lot for the most part, but this is going to be more of like a podcasty thing anyway, I figured. So I was doing a lot of station to station trading, and obviously I was trying to deal with a lot of like I was doing a good job of like sniping certain products that were like underpriced. There was obviously a lot of like scam stuff I was dealing with. Sometimes I would buy something for really, really low price in one area, or I should say there was a super high buy order in one area, and I would buy there and I would try and sell it over there, but it was obviously the minimal sell price was this or that. And there was a couple times, not too often, there was a couple times where I'd buy a lot of stuff, but I couldn't sell it for a profit because someone set me up for that scam. And so that was something else I had to look out for. And at this point, I was finished skilling towards the orca. I was always wanted to skill towards the orca. I saw a lot of cool videos about it, and I was this large mining ship. And I still enjoyed mining, just passively. And it was something I could do while I was working, kind of like in the background. And it was definitely something that required minimal attention. So I was done skilling for the orca, so I would kind of do that. I would do a bit of mining when I wasn't actively hauling, but I was still on the market while I was mining because I was still wanted to buy stuff in the JITA market. So, but then soon after, I literally suffered like the biggest loss I've ever had so far. So I was using my orca obviously for mining, but occasionally if I needed to move like a lot of different things with like awkward sizes, I would actually use my orca. And I was surprised how good it was at moving certain things, especially if I was buying ore in one area and moving it to the other. Until one day I was going through Niarja. This is when Niarja, before it was kind of plucked out of the map. I remember buying a Praxis and like a few other things in Amar for a low price, and I was going to sell it in Jita. But the Praxis is too big to fit in the fleet hold of the Orca, which is like 40,000. But any repackaged battleship is about 50,000 meters cubed, so it couldn't fit. So I actually had to take out my bulkhead and my damage control to fit 2 cargo expanders into my Orca to be able to fit it and transport it, which is obviously a huge mistake because someone must have scanned me on the way there to Jita. And the second I went through Niarja, I uncloaked. I tried doing my cloak trick thingy. I mean, it's not perfect, but back then I didn't have the best skills or really understood how like the cloak trick worked that well, and I didn't overheat my micro warp drive. A lot of things I could have done differently. And I remember getting scrammed, and actually I'll log out now and get on my main. I remember actually getting scrammed in my Orca and thinking, oh shit, this is happening. The weird thing is ganking in Eve is kind of like thinking, you know, you're not going to get robbed. Like in real life, you're like, oh, it's something that happens to other people, but not me. It wouldn't happen to me. Like I know the safe places to go and this and that, but it can happen to you in Eve Online. So sure enough, you can get ganked. So okay, here we go. Now that we're on my main account, now we can actually look at a few different things. So this character was actually made in 2017. So that's when I joined the mining corp. And I only played for like a month and then I had to quit. So it's called the Insignia of Light and Darkness. So I played for about a month, quit. Nothing against them. There were a bunch of actually like really nice people, but it looks like the corp disbanded. So I was automatically sent over to the deep core, like mining, whatever it was for the most part. And so I started playing again, probably March of 2020. That's probably when I started playing. So I've been playing pretty hardcore for about 8 or 9 months. For the most part, but I also wanted to go to here, my interactions, combat log, and there was this gank. This gank really hurt. So I'm in Niarja. Well, it says -1 now. It wasn't -1 back then, but I was ganked by 49 catalysts. And at first I was upset, but then thinking back, I thought it was hilarious just seeing a huge ball of 49 catalysts, all red, blinking, coming at me and taking me out. And I don't blame them because I had, you know, there's the where's the Praxis? Yeah, there's the Praxis I had in my cargo bay because I needed to have enough room to make it happen. And I got ganked, and I got a lot of mail from them. Some people trolling, and then some people were actually being serious. Some people were like, "Hey man, like if you're gonna transport something, like never use cargo expanders in your Orca. Like it's just not worth it." So I remember talking to them a bit, and I was honestly entertaining the idea for a little bit, joining Pandemic Horde at that point, just because I was tired of losing stuff. I wanted to become part of a big corp, and I wanted to become part of this kind of stuff. Not like just ganking people, but just with a bunch of people that are enjoying Eve content together. And you know, you may think that this kind of stuff is screwed up, but it's fun. I was on the receiving end of it, and I wasn't too butthurt about it. I mean, it sucked a lot. And honestly, I thought it was going to be the final thing that was going to cause me to quit even, but then I kind of took a hard look at it and I was like, all right, well, this is my fault. Like, I didn't feel like I was really cheated out of anything because I knew it. I could trace it all back. Because I knew like each time I did those things, like when I put in those expanded cargo holds or each time, or when I lost my Dominics, like I just knew like I knew it was a bad decision before I made it, but I did it anyway. And so that's when I was like, all right, well, I knew it was a bad decision. I knew it could happen. So, and it did. Like, if something can happen, it will. Something bad happen, it will happen in Eve. And so, luckily, shortly after that, I would say like the next day, I was posting it in mining chat and also in the haulers chat. I was like, hey guys, like, just FYI, you know, just be careful if you're hauling in an Orca, blah, blah. Just kind of like more warning people because I didn't want people to kind of suffer the same fate. And of all places in mining chat, like where I'm in right now, this guy who was, I think, clearly intoxicated, just talking about a lot of stuff, and he was just like, oh, like peace and love and all this stuff, and like people were trying to troll him, but like nothing could like make him upset. He even like linked his like couple Facebook pictures of him. He looked like this like older dude. He was in decent shape, but like half the pictures were him just drinking and enjoying himself. So I thought it was funny, and so I brought up the story like, hey, by the way, like I lost my orca. Just be careful if you guys are doing hauling or if you guys use orcas. And then he randomly donated me like 1.5 billion, or I think it was 1.2, to like cover the cost of the loss I had at the time, whatever this amount was. And I was like, what? And then I looked it up, and he was like, hey man, like I'm sorry to hear about your loss. Like, you know, stay happy. Like people are here to help you. All this stuff. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. And so again, this is the second time I've actually had people like donate me ISK, and there's been people that helped me along the way. But I was just so surprised by this guy's like generosity to give me a ton of ISK. To kind of cover my losses. And so I actually ended up making money losing my ship because I got paid plus the insurance plus all the kill rights on all the people, which I think most of them went for anywhere between like probably like 10 to 30 million. And the ones that didn't go through, I just put it for free. That's usually what I do. If there's like a day left or a day or two left on my kill rights, I usually just put it up for free just to screw them over for the most part. And so I mean, at that point, like after I lost those two ships, but then I noticed something. Like I was going through a lot of trig systems, and at this point I was pro Triglavian because I knew those systems were really dangerous. I noticed there's a lot of wrecks like in the Triglavian system, so I was like, man, when I lost my ship, like when I lost my Gila, I was like, that was like a 400 million ISK like fit, you know, for the most part, you know, including the ship of course. But I was like, what if I just started just taking those wrecks? Like I know it's dangerous, but what if I just got in and out like super quick? And so there were some systems heavily camped by people, but there were some systems that there was only like one or two people mainly, or at most, kind of going in and out. So I remember just sitting in those systems, just waiting for people to die basically. Then I would come in and swoop the wreck and all that stuff. I would say probably the biggest swipe I've ever had was probably a really recent one. There was these army of golems going from one jump to another, and I don't know if they got stacked on top of each other or someone bumped them off the gate a little bit, but one died, and I actually managed to loot like 950 million worth of like mods off of it. It had like an extra large pith like X type like shield booster or something like that, and that's not cheap. So I had that plus some other things, and so I was like, wow, I almost made a build just off just ninja looting this thing. And that one's pretty recent, but I've made quite a bit of money just ninja looting in my Synesis, which I actually have as a fit in one of my other videos. I made a Synesis fit video for hauling and also for looting as well. And then more recently, I started looking into industry, and I tried it a couple times, but I honestly just don't think it's for me. It just seems really complicated. It seems very skill gated. You have to really understand what's profitable, what's not. You have to put a lot of skills into it, and juggling the minerals and ore, like it's just not something I'm really into, and I'd rather just sell ore as is, especially since the economy the way it is with ore skyrocketing. I just don't think ships and stuff have kind of caught up yet, so it seems like industry, unless for very specific items, doesn't seem profitable. So it's something I will get into eventually, but just right now I just don't see it happening, to be honest. So right now I'm just kind of just juggling all those different types of content between exploration and mining. Oh, I forgot to mention, I did do like a little bit of abyss runs. I was doing a lot of abyss stuff with like my passive Gila, which I was thrilled about because I didn't realize it was like the king of like the abyss. So it was nice because I already had a ton of skills towards it. And I would probably say, like, honestly, if I was giving a recommendation to a new player, I would recommend that they would probably start skilling for the Gila. Just because it's something that could do abyss, it can do combat sites, it can do missions, it can do a whole lot of stuff, especially, you know, like mostly PvE content, obviously. But I mean, you can do like 3 or 4 different types of PvE content like pretty consistently. And so I think that's probably a ship I would recommend for new players. I mean, not to skill towards it immediately, but then, I mean, it's like, yeah, just get your shields up, get your drone skills up, maybe some like missiles for the most part. And you're pretty much good to go for the most part. So, but more recently, I would say I've really gotten into fits, especially for, you know, hauling, mining. I actually have a video on mining fits. I have a video on hauling fits, just because those are the things I'm like the most familiar with. But I do love the intricacies of like dealing with fits in ships and power grid restraints and how we can overcome that and fit oversized micro warp drives on ships that it shouldn't belong. I'm trying to figure out how to do like a true warp trick with like an orca. I just love playing around with these things, and so and I think that's what really helped me like want to make the channel. I think I saw a lot of YouTube videos on EVE Online, but some of them were just like really old. Like I was surprised by some of the videos I was watching are back from like 2015, sometimes even like 2012, things like that. And I just noticed that there wasn't a lot of like either recent content or content that was just simply outdated or just like straight up like incorrect for the most part. So I was really surprised by like the lack of like guides and fits and content, things like that. So I would say the last few months, I made my own corp to dodge some taxes. And I think going forward, I'm not too sure. Like at this point, I've kind of already caught up to like where I'm at right now with like my EVE, I don't know, career, whatever you want to call it. Not too sure what I'm going to do going forward. I do have a corporation with just like me and my alts. I mainly just, like I said earlier, just to like dodge taxes and stuff whenever I do ratting or certain things like that. But I'm not sure. I think at some point I will join a non-high sec corp, whether it's low sec or null sec. I'm not exactly sure. Or I might just grow the corporation I have and just keep it as like a high sec mining corp. I do like mining. It's more something I like to do on the side. It's kind of like my guilty pleasure, I guess you could say. I'm just not sure if I have like the time or the patience to be like the CEO of a corp and kind of build it up and do fleet operations or mining operations and things like that. So I do enjoy it and I love interacting with people and I would like love to start a corporation, but I'm just not sure if I could like physically and mentally keep up with it. Though if I were to do it like in a perfect world and I did have time and I wanted to do it, I would obviously have fleet like mining fleets, but I would also love to do some occasional like low sec roams. I think getting me and like 5 or 6 other people all in like battle ventures, because I think most people that do mining, you know, don't have the best PvP skills or acumen, but they do have good venture skills, and we just put on some very simple weapons, put on some micro warp drives, and you get 6 or 7 ventures out there just killing people out in low sec just to kind of mix things up. I think that would be pretty fun. So I think just mixing up the variety of kind of doing some mining and non-mining as well. And who knows, maybe if I get enough people, I'll fly out my orca, do some shield boosts, as well as some like skirmish boosts, things like that. And then also put a bunch of fitted ventures inside of my orca so we can kind of stay out in the battlefield. So like those are the kind of things I think would be really fun, where it's just doing PvPing, but it's not a big deal because we're kind of set up to lose. But if we do kill something, like that's really, really awesome, So that's what I would ideally like to do. And if someone's not that into PvPing, maybe we'll do some roams where we kill some NPC miners, because those freaking miners are taking our jobs. So I think it'd be cool to get 6 or 7 other people, fit a bunch of catalysts on there, and just blow up all the miners in a belt until the response fleet shows up and kills us all as well. So whatever happens. So I think mixing it up as well, that's what I would ideally like to do, is mix up a bit of PvP and maybe some like NPC killing alongside like the mining, if I was to like run my own corporation for the most part. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of caught up to this point. I mean, I would say this, just as an offhand thing, I'm a big fan. Like, I love sci-fi, which is why I probably got into E, but I also love fantasy too. I actually started a like D&D channel. I was D&D and EVE Online are probably the 2 biggest things that like really captured my attention and really wanted me to do like a bunch of research and like look into different classes and build and fits and ships and all that kind of stuff. And so I actually made a D&D channel a while ago, but it just kind of fell off because I got busy. I got hired back at work and I was playing a lot of EVE Online. And I started doing this channel. This channel just seemed to be a bit more successful. I would love to get back into D&D, but I also left like my D&D groups because that was also taking up a lot of time. It's just not the same playing, virtually versus in person, So that's another reason why I quit, and I just wanted to be able to focus more on work as well as EVE Online for the most part. So I just wanted to, and I'm curious, I was at some point, like in my, dream scenario, I would kind of connect the 2 channels together. I'll bring up in the D&D video, like, hey, I do talk a lot about EVE Online, so if all of you guys that are into fantasy that like sci-fi, head over here, and vice versa. All you sci-fi people that like fantasy and D&D, head over to this channel, and kind of like those 2 channels can kind of feed into each other for the most part. But right now, I think I'm still trying to get into the scenario of creating content instead of consuming content, because I love playing Eve, even though a lot of the time I am being pretty passive and I'm doing a lot of ship spinning because I'm doing market stuff, or I'm too busy with work at the time to do something, to do anything relatively active. So I can't, do abyss runs or do anything kind of crazy. So I'm kind of stuck with either doing mining or just doing market training during work, and that stuff's pretty boring. And then when work's over, I actually want to play, but then I need to start creating content, and these kind of videos take anywhere between, like 2 to 10 hours. It just depends on how long the video it is, and it takes to to buffer it and all that stuff and upload it to YouTube. But a couple of you guys also caught me on Twitch. I was actually on Twitch years ago. I used to play a lot of Hearthstone as well, and I would play Hearthstone Arena. And I was actually probably top 100 in NA back in this is probably back in 2017 or 18, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was actually a pretty decent arena player. And I had a good amount of followers, people checking me out. But again, that kind of fell off because I needed to find a job at the time. And so sometimes when you guys notice, sometimes when I stream on Twitch, sometimes you'll see some old viewers that I have from Hearthstone that don't really watch EVE Online or understand what's happening. So sometimes those people jump in there, and I guess that's another thing is if that is something you guys are interested in, I would love to see down in the comments below. I would love to hear you guys' ideas about what kind of content do you want me to cover in EVE Online. You guys want me to keep talking about fits and ships, or just kind of the day-to-day stuff? I've watched some other YouTubers that do talk about I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that just covers the same thing over and over and over. Ooh, I did this type of content this time and it's a bit different. I did this content over and over and over, That's not something I would like to do, but that seems to do well. It just seems like the consistency of just uploading anything seems to work really well, at least in EVE Online. So maybe that's what I should start doing, even though it's not the most educational or groundbreaking entertainment or educational video. I think I just need to start uploading stuff a bit more frequently. So I'd love to hear what kind of content you guys would want me to upload. If you guys care about a D&D channel, because I was making a lot of stuff about 5th edition. That's what I played a lot. As well as if you guys want to see me stream. Streaming, I actually prefer streaming instead of YouTube. Not all the time, because it's nice that I could just flip on the stream and just play for 2 or 3 hours and have everything be kind of instant and talk to people live, which is awesome. But YouTube is also nice because I can do it whenever I want, and I can upload it and edit it and do all that stuff. So sorry for the really, really long ramble, guys, but I mainly wanted to just make this video for you and kind of get you guys an idea where I'm coming from, my history of EVE, and kind of some other interests that I have outside of EVE, and see if that kind of lands true with any of you guys, and if that stuff you guys are interested as well. But we shall see. But I hope you guys like my story on EVE and kind of my other interests. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I would love for you guys to throw some comments down below of what kind of content you guys would like to see next. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys later, and fly safe.